Building Men is brought to you by Finish the Race Apparel, FTRapparel.com, the creators of all things Building Men, and by Become Stronger Industries, become-stronger.com, the creators of handmade steel maces, hammers, and other badass equipment.
With empathy and effort, I demonstrate intentionally my love for my wife. Through my actions, my words, and my patience, I deliberately coach my children to be confident, capable people. I influence positive change in this world so that others find success they otherwise might not have. And through the execution of my process, I have left a legacy that my children, future generations, and I am proud of. If you read that in the morning, and then you show up at a 9-to-5 job that you hate, either the job is lying, or the statement's lying, or you're on fire from 5:30 to midnight while you work on the way you get out of that job.
You're listening to the Building Men podcast with Dennis and Anthony Miralda, brothers on a mission
to help you become the strongest version of yourself, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, and physically.
And we're live. What's up, brother?
What's happening?
So the guest that we have on today, his name is Sean Pastuch. We're going to talk to him about the pronunciation of his last name, because that's something that we talk about as well, just how we pronounce our own last name as well, right? And so when we were just getting to know him for a little bit, and he asked us about this thing, Kill Tony. It's the guy who does roast for Comedy Central, and come on and fucking blast him for a minute, and he's saying, I wish somebody would come on and tell me why I'm wrong or I'm an asshole.
Tell me why I suck.
Tell me why I suck for a minute. So I'm going to give you an opportunity right now. I'm going to give you 30 seconds. Pick out any of your voices that you can do. Pick out a Boston accent, a Philly accent. Tell me why I suck in 30 seconds.
Fuck. All right, Dennis, listen. Let me tell you why you suck. Honestly, bro, it's the way you fucking look. Like, you look like a scumbag. Like, you don't dress nice. You're fucking walking around like you just rolled out of bed. Like, look like you give a shit, dude. Look legit. Like, you gotta look like me. Like, I'm buttoned up. I fucking hate that about you.
Nicely done, brother.
You like that?
Good stuff. All
Fuck, you put me on the spot.
I know. Well, that's what I do. So let's bring on our guest right now. He is the creator of Active Life. He does a podcast. His name is Sean Pastuch. So, Sean, welcome to the podcast, my man. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. I feel like I was just listening to my childhood from other kids in high school.
Oh, dude, well, so Anthony does he'll pull some voices out. So if you ever want him, he could do a Boston accent. He could do a Wisconsin accent.
I'm working on that one, but yeah, I gotta...
Well, no, I mean, you just nailed Long Island.
Yeah.
So just bring out a little Tom Costigan. Do a little Boston.
Tom Costigan. Well, here's the thing about Tom. Tom's a stand-up guy, but, you know, when it comes to him, he always has a bottle of Chianti on him. That's a fact. Tom Costigan he's a family guy, so, you know, it's... So
he's a Boston guy. Tom Costigan's a Boston guy.
He's a Boston guy.
So, Sean, your last name. Tell us about you. As we were getting to know you for a second, you told us that your family had an argument about your last name.
Well, so yeah, my grandma on my dad's side used to say our last name was Pastuch. My dad would say our last name is Pastuch, or like Pastuch with a hard CH. And my uncle and his kids would say it's Pastuch, like Toosh. And so I've always said Pastuch. One day I was walking on the mall in Washington, D.C., and I walked up to this place. I wanted to get like this Polish water ice, and it had liquor in it. So they needed you to give them ID. So I give them ID, and the woman says, "Oh, a Pastuch." I said, "No, it's actually pronounced Pastuch." And she goes, "No, it's not." She's like, "You obviously don't speak Polish or know anything about your last name." And she goes on this diatribe of like, you're from the Cohen clan. Wow. Your people were the shepherds. They were from this part of the country. And from that day on, I'm like, she's probably right. I probably have no idea what I'm talking about, but I'm still going to say what I've always said my last name is. And so it's Pastuch until proven otherwise.
So people pay all this money for 23andMe and Ancestry.com. Go to fucking Helga in Washington, D.C., and she'll give you the breakdown of your last name.
Easy day.
Fuck, that's amazing, right?
Amazing.
We gotta find this woman.
I know.
Before we're getting on, I'm like, let's figure out how to pronounce his last name. And I'm thinking, did you have a nickname around your last name in high school? Were you like the Stoosh? Like, yo, Stoosh!
That's exactly what it was. When I graduated college, my friends always wanted to come back to my childhood house because my parents, they had a great party house growing up. And so we had Stuch-Fest every year for like 9 years after college until everyone started having kids and all that kind of stuff. And
It's so annoying.
we're working on getting it back because it was too much fun. And now it's like we're all serious and shit. And we got to get back to
So
Stuch-Fest.
Stuch-Fest. So we'll start with the important stuff. So Stuch-Fest. I walk into Stuch-Fest. What's the fucking shit that's going on there? What are the shenanigans that are happening at Stuch-Fest?
So the reason why it was so appealing to come out to where I was is I live on Long Island. So they would come, like the first year it was like, come out on Friday night, stay Saturday, Sunday. And Friday night we would go to a local bar on a dock. And then Saturday we would go to the beach all day. Saturday night we would go to the city. Sunday we'd hang out in my backyard, my parents' backyard by the pool, and kind of work the hangover off. That evolved to going all the way to like come out on Wednesday and beach, local bars, city bars, clubs, strip clubs, all of it. No one ever banged a stripper. We were all respectful of the women who we were in relationships with.
Right. Wink, wink.
No, we didn't. We didn't. There was no sex with strippers that I know of. But I mean, my wife was there. She was the only woman who came, and then eventually she had hot friends. So she would bring her friends, and my friends were like, it's cool that your wife comes or your girlfriend comes. She's got hot friends. So as long as she keeps bringing hot friends, she can keep coming.
It's legit.
That's
so
amazing.
Stooch-Fest, I was thinking it was a day. It was.
That's a serious fest.
That was 5-6 days. Like
Oh, yeah,
Woodstock
it
had
was.
nothing on this experience.
Woodstock, come on. Jagger, who's
Woodstock,
that?
Get the hell
Schmudstock.
out of here. Yeah. What's that schmudstock? It's gonna fucking.
All right, so let's get into you grew up on Long Island, you said, so that was the area where you were. We'll start your story there. So bring us back to growing up in Long Island, your experience in school. We're always interested in people's journeys in education. So one or two things that you could pull out from your experience in school that's a memory, like, man, this is fucking great, or man, this memory fucked me up a little bit and when I was growing up in Long Island.
Well, I have a statement. I'll give you two stories. So the statement is I wasn't good at school and I didn't care. I knew I was smart enough and I never gave a shit what my grade said about me. So, just get me through.
Yeah.
I'm good. I did fine, B student, but I never cared to get the A at all. Like my SATs, I took them once, one and done. Not interested in doing it more. The two stories that I will tell you are in 7th grade. There'll be 7th and 8th grade stories. In 7th grade, I thought I was really cool. Like I had a lot of friends in elementary school. 7th grade is where middle school starts where I am. It's 2 years, 7th and 8th. I was 103 pounds, soaking wet. Like I wrestled 103 pounds in middle school. And I wasn't allowed to, there was no weight class below me. I couldn't cut down, right? So I think there might have been a 98-pound class, but there wasn't always a match at that weight because they couldn't always get 2 kids who weighed that. So the 8th grader, who looked like he was 40, for whatever reason, had a problem with me. And this kid was 220 pounds, had a beard, like brought his kid to school, and his kid was walking and talking. I'm kidding about the kid part. He just looked like he could have had a kid. And he wanted to beat me up for some reason. And I got nervous, scared, and I left school. I was like, I'm not dealing with this. I don't need to mess with Anthony. I'm going home. So I go home, and my dad, who I grew up revering, and I knew he was capable of handling himself in a fight. You didn't need to because I saw him do it. I knew he could do it. He's like, what are you doing? And to make a long story short, he says to me, tomorrow when you go to school, I want you to challenge Anthony to a fight. I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, have you seen this kid? He's like, yeah, but you can't go to school scared for the rest of your life. And you can't let somebody else control that over you. So go in there, tell them you don't want to fight them, but if you have to, you want to, and now is the time. And the worst case scenario is you get beat up and everybody thinks you were going to get beat up anyway, so nobody cares. The best case scenario is you win the fight or you hurt Anthony and everyone's like, wow, Sean's way tougher than we thought. So I'm like, oh, God. All right. I was more scared of my dad being disappointed than I was of Anthony beating me up. So the next day I went into school and I found Anthony and I was like, I don't know why you want to beat me up, but let's just fight right now if that's what you want to do. And he looked at me and he's like, nah, we're cool. I'm like, this motherfucker. But so the lesson that I learned from it was just that I don't let people walk all over me. It doesn't matter what the consequences are of standing up for myself. I'm not going to let somebody else have that power. It's not going to fly. So that was lesson number one. Lesson number two that I'll share with you is, in large part because of that experience, I joined the wrestling team and I wanted to learn how to defend myself in a better way. And I got cut from basketball. Wrestling was the sport to defer to when you get cut from basketball. It was like one or the other this season. So, 5'5", 103 pounds. I wasn't a screaming example of what the basketball team needed, I guess. So wrestle. I get cut from basketball again in 8th grade. Wrestle again, get cut from basketball again in 9th grade, wrestle again. And I just got so tired of getting cut from basketball that I actually practiced in the off season and decided I was going to make the basketball team my sophomore year. And that was going to be that. Like, I'm not getting cut again. Made the basketball team my sophomore year, became a team captain, started for the team most games, was sixth man a lot of games. And that was where I really started to learn that, like, if you want something, you can get it. You just have to work for it more than you'd like to.
I love the one, you started talking about saying you were good at school, or you could be good at school. That whole idea, people, it's playing a game to go and do what you're told, kind of thing. So people are good at school or they're not good at school, or they choose not to be, and you were like, fuck it, I'm going to do enough to get by in this situation. Sean, I have a story. It runs parallel to that one about bullying when I was in 6th grade. Mine ended up a little bit differently, and it all came down to the way that your father approached it. My father wanted me to go fight these 3 kids. They were 8th graders. It's the same kind of idea, but it was more like, you're a fucking pussy. You need to go defend my name against these kids right now. And I didn't do it. I froze up. And it's one of those core memory trauma experiences that I had that showed up in a different way. So as you're telling that story in the beginning, I was like, wow, I wonder what would have happened in my life if Dad would have been like, put his arm around me like, I know you're scared, son. I know why don't I show you how to fight? Or why
don't I teach you something rather than shaming you?
Yeah.
Isn't it amazing too that the 2 lessons that you learned were outside of the classroom? If you think about it, in school, the things that you took away the most were outside of that actual space inside the whiteboard, and I find that amazing too.
Yep.
The lessons that I learned, I had some great teachers growing up, and I will give them credit for that. Let me backtrack. The thing that my father did the best and still does the best that I always wanted to emulate, and I have a great relationship with both my parents, is he had and has this calm confidence that you're like, I can't disagree with him. He's so confident about this, I can't disagree with him. And so that was something that was helpful. And yeah, putting his arm around me and, meeting me where I was also helpful. And then not having to have fear for like losing the fight. It was like, yeah, you might get the shit beat out of you.
Yeah.
And that's all right. At least people are going to know you went up and did it. That was helpful. I didn't have the fear of like, what if I do it and it doesn't go the way I want it to go? And then I have to come home and tell Dad that I failed. None of that was on the table. The thing that was being celebrated was just the process of it. I had teachers in school, a teacher in particular, Mr. Dietrich, who was my junior English teacher in high school, who helped me write my essays for college. And I got into colleges that I shouldn't have gotten into because my essays were really good. Really good. And my extracurriculars were really good. And the first time I wrote the essay, Mr. Dietrich looked at it and he was just like, it's basically trash. You wrote this. I can tell that you wrote this as a stream of consciousness. You didn't plan a beginning. You didn't plan an end. So nothing from the beginning ties into the, and that was the first time I was like, you can think about writing like that. And that set me on a trajectory. I get paid to write through college and chiropractic school. And I never thought I was a good writer before that. So I did learn lessons in the classroom too. It's just most of them were about how to make the classroom work for me and less about how the classroom can help me.
And the faith that teacher had in you, Mr. Dietrich, you said, had in you to challenge you, to push you. So he was more of a mentor or a coach in that respect than he was as a teacher. Even it's helping you believe something greater about yourself than you knew existed before that. And so now talk to us. You mentioned writing in college, being paid to write in college, and then in your profession as a chiropractor. Talk to us a little bit about your decision to go down that direction in your life, to study that in school, and some lessons you learned through that journey.
So I didn't study that, and I actually misspoke. I didn't get paid for it in college. I got paid for it in chiropractic school and after I graduated.
Okay.
In college, the lesson that I really, the way I applied my writing was I didn't like reading books, especially in college. Like, surprise, surprise, I didn't like to read long books in college about shit that I didn't care about. So instead, I would go to classes and make notes about the discussion that people would have around the books. And then based on that discussion, I could write a whole piece about what I thought of the characters without ever referencing the book. It would be like, I could talk about like the instances that people in class would describe. And I can say, when Tom did this in the book, it reminded me of, and then I'm out of the book. So I would find ways to use the skills that he taught me to go in and come out. I had to write a thesis paper my senior year to graduate because I didn't like following rules. I still don't. And so I didn't choose a major that was built for me. At University of Maryland, they had a program called the Individual Studies major, which meant there isn't a major here that works for my interests. And so I need to build my own. And that was the major that I majored in. And in order to do that, you had to develop your own major by selecting all of your coursework from the catalog that the school had. Then you had to present to a board why these were the classes that you were going to take and to what end you were going to take them, right? And then you have to get approved. And in order to graduate out of that program, you have to write a thesis about what you learned along the way and all that. It was harder than any class you would ever take. And I did it because it allowed me to not follow someone else's predetermined curriculum. That was the only reason. I was just so stubborn not to let somebody else dictate that I was going to go through this arduous process. My year, I think we graduated close to 8,000 students. I was in a class of 17 in my major.
It's an intimate graduation ceremony.
Yeah, but I researched and wrote the thesis in 3 days, 54 pages. I got a B+ on it. Writing has become something because in large part due to him. That is like one of my unique abilities as a grown professional.
That experience you have, it was like a journey in self-discovery. Looking back, like, would you do that again? Would that be something that you would have done again based on your experience and your learning?
The major?
Yeah.
No, it was the dumbest thing I ever did. No, because I put things into that major that were so difficult and unnecessary because I wanted to leave the door open to going to medical school after college. So I put all of the medical school prereqs into my major. Hindsight, I would have just been a kinesiology major, and then I would have taken the prereqs for those schools at community college where the grades don't matter.
Awesome. I thought when it was going to go in a different direction. I thought it was going to be like, I really learned about myself and about time management and the the autonomy of the. No, you're like, fuck that. That was fucking ridiculous. I can't believe I did that.
I didn't have any meaningful introspection skills until like 2012, and I graduated college in 2005.
All right, so that was a 7-year discovery process for you right there.
Well, that was when it started. I would say that I became a conscious adult in 2016.
Was there a ceremonial moment for you when you said I became?
I hired a mentor because I was tired of being a doctor who owned a gym and an event who was broke, working 17-hour days, living off of his wife's income.
That'll do it.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned the you're in class, right, and you're listening. You found a way around the system where you didn't want to read the books anymore. This is ridiculous. I'm going to listen to some discussions. I almost thought of Cliff Notes, but you did it in a different way. You
I didn't want to read
beat
Cliff
the
Notes
system,
either.
right? You made Stuch Notes.
That's it.
Stuch Notes.
Stuch Notes.
So, like, it's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant.
Thanks.
So now talk to us. So you mentioned going into, from that point, having an interest in medicine and going in that direction. You wish you would have studied kinesiology in school. From that point to becoming a chiropractor, like that being the course of study that you went into. Now bridge the gap from one period to another when you were learning about, in that field.
So my dad was a chiropractor, and my uncle was a chiropractor. And for that reason, I wanted to do anything except become a chiropractor. And so for a year, and not because I didn't love them, because I was like, I'm not going to follow their path. I'm going to do my own thing. I can't even take a fucking major that the school has pre-written for me. I'm going to follow my dad's career path. Get out of here. So I went and became a personal trainer at a local-ish gym that was terribly run. I learned all of the things I needed to learn about how not to be a trainer, how not to run a business, how not to just anything gym related, and got a job at Equinox where I learned how to do all of the right things. And it became uninspiring to me because I would take my clients upstairs to the physical therapy suite and say, this person has this issue, what do I do? This person has this issue, what do I do? And repeatedly they would tell me, work around it. And I'm like, this sucks. How would I work around it? So I was and by the way, I asked them, should I bring this person to you? And they say, no, they don't need physical therapy. They're just too old for it. Or their injury is just too far gone. I'm like, this can't be the best it gets. And so I got myself to the point that I was one of the top trainers in Equinox worldwide in terms of revenue generated. They offered me a management job. And I just couldn't fathom the idea of, surprise, surprise, going into a corporate structure or having the ceiling be so low that we just work around it. Like, I'm like, this is not it.
Right.
So I went to chiropractic school. And my trends continued. I wasn't a very good conformist. I didn't do very well on tests. I'll never forget our radiology class. You need to have a 70 in the class in order to move on to the next semester. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. You get a 69 in that class. It costs you $10,000 in 3 months. No, thank you. So like the leases and everything is a mess about that. The first test I got, let's see what the math is on this. I got a 46 out of 100. There's 2 tests, and that's your grade. So I needed a 94 on the final. I don't think anybody in the class got a 94 on the first test. So the rest of the semester, my grades in the other classes were fine. And the way that I treated the rest of the semester is I only have one class. I don't have these other classes. I'm going to go to the class, and I'm never going to study for it. And every off period, I'm going to go take the lab version of the class, the radiology class, that I failed the first time. And so I took 3 labs a week instead of 1 in the radiology class, spent office hours twice a week with the professor to make sure I was learning, and spent all of my studying time on that class only. I got C's in everything. And in that class, I got like a 96 on the final, and it was the best grade in the whole class.
That's a true underdog story right there.
Yeah.
They should make a movie about that experience right there. That's big.
It would be really boring. It'd be really boring.
No, we can do it.
It'd be like, what's that? And I'd be like, that's multiple myeloma. How do you know? Well, it would just be a really boring movie.
No, well, you add in some Stuch-Fest from time to time in there as well. Thank God thank God your father and uncle weren't proctologists, right? You would have went down that path.
Well, I learned how to do a prostate exam in chiropractic school.
Anthony, you up for that?
Oh, yeah.
Listen, it's just two in and down. It's right there.
Listen, it's not my
Two,
first time
man.
having some two-finger play.
Yeah.
So my brother and I were talking, and when I hear chiropractor, the only thing I think of is someone going in there and just someone snapping them and cracking and popping a few things, and then they, slap them on the ass and they leave. Or you're probably not doing that, but so what is, can you explain to us what a chiropractor does? Because I know it's so much more than that, but I've never had a description or someone talk about it. Like, what is that profession?
No, I can't, because chiropractors can't figure out what the fuck they do. They're so variable from one to the next. So the reason, surprise, surprise, it didn't work out in my father's office. I ended up going out on my own, right? I mean, who could have predicted that? But I didn't want to do chiropractic the way everyone was doing it. I really struggled with, I'm realizing this as we talk, holy shit, I really struggled with conforming to anybody else's things. So, but ironically enough, I was the most predictable, non-conforming conformist of all time. So I became really, 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 really good at diagnosing and treating soft tissue injury, adjusting when appropriate, and using hands-on soft tissue manipulation, chiropractic adjustments, exercise, and lifestyle design in order to help patients get results that they really weren't going to be able to get anywhere else. And that was what launched this business that I run now, which I've been steady in for the last 3 years. No non-conforming in my own thing anymore. And that, I guess I would say I would have done it differently if I knew how to do it differently and get to where I am now, but I wouldn't trade the outcome for anything.
So I'll start with saying the Active Life logo is badass. We were taking a look at it today. I absolutely love it. It was really well done. Talk to us about how you came up with the idea for Active Life, and tell us a little bit about what it is and what your mission is.
I can tell you where I was. So Hurricane Sandy hit my gym and my clinic in Long Beach, New York in 2012, October 30th, I think, or 29th, and just destroyed it. Clinic gone, house gone, well, apartment, and gym gone. So basically, you wake up in the morning, and what would you do on a regular basis? Forget about it, because it's gone. You don't need to do that today. All of it, gone. And I had just come out of winning a lawsuit with my next door neighbor who sued us for making too much noise. It cost me $120,000 that I didn't have to win a lawsuit to stay in business in a location that 5 days later got washed out by the biggest superstorm to hit New York ever. So that sucked. And I'm thinking about okay, well, what's the opportunity in this? I get to rebuild. I get to decide what I want this thing to be with the year of experience that I already had. What do I want it to be? And at the time, my office was called Thrive Long Beach Chiropractic. And I had to constantly explain to people, I'm a chiropractor, but not like you're thinking. And I hated saying that. I hated I am this, but not like you would think. And I decided, what could be a name I could provide that represented all of the things that I was doing in my business and all of the things I would want to do long term? I want to help people live an active life. So what if my business was Active Life? And as I built new businesses underneath it, I could have Active Life Chiropractic and Soft Tissue, active life athletics, active life, university, all these different things that would all feed up to the active life name. And so I realized this while I was walking my dog northbound on Hewlett Avenue in Merrick. And it just hit me like a freaking lightning bolt. Walked home, wrote it down, trademarked the name, and we were off. That was the name. The logo came 5 years later, because it didn't matter what the logo was for a long time. It wasn't until we were going online that really I felt like the logo mattered. And so I hired a graphic designer. I showed her what our education looked like. And at the base of our education was this pyramid. We called it the athlete's hierarchy of needs. And basically the way it worked was we would draw this pyramid and we would draw lines in it. And at the time, the base of the pyramid was flexibility. So if you didn't have passive range of motion, we would say you're not going to be able to do anything. Right? Like if your joints just can't move at all, you're not doing anything. You're a guy in a cast. If you have flexibility, the next thing is, do you have mobility, which we were classifying as the ability to actively achieve your passive ranges of motion. So you have flexibility, boom, mobility is next. You have mobility. Next up would be, do you have balance of strength across all of your joints? You have that, great. Up next would be, do you have the appropriate work-life balance or work-to-rest ratio? You have that, great. Do you have, up next would be the appropriate skill. And what we would teach coaches as we would do this was we would draw a line from the bottom left corner about halfway up all the way through to the right. Just draw that line like you see in the logo. And we would say everything to the right of this line is best done by a doctor. Everything to the left of this line is best done by a coach in a gym setting. We need these two things to come together. Right now, there's this huge gap in between, and people on both sides are trying to work on both sides of this line. And so that hierarchy with the line became our logo.
So interesting that there was that much behind the logo. We were just saying it was a badass logo, but the intentionality behind it, I'm so glad that I brought that up. I love that idea.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And you look at like the hard part, and most people work the other way around, right? Just working in a gym, like people will start with the bells and whistles when they're coaching someone. They'll have them, do whatever fancy thing they found on Instagram or YouTube rather than working from the ground up like you did with the base of the pyramid there. And as a coach as well, working in that frame for, a good third of my life, I know that the hardest part was that I can't do something for someone. I need to tell them to do it for themselves. Whereas like a doctor works on someone, I need to get someone to do these workouts for them. And how do I work around that and make that happen? And you have the ability to have coaches with you when you're helping them manipulate certain things, working on their fascial tissue, and then you can have a coach who's doing that external stuff. So you have this whole holistic approach, which so many places are missing, because I'm with someone for an hour and then 23 hours out of the day I don't know if they're going to visit a doctor or they're going to see a chiropractor like I asked them.
Well, what happened for us was I had a partner at the time. We started to become really well known in our industry, and people started flying out to our office for visits. Like we had patients fly in. We had a guy named Johan fly out from Finland. James flew in from Australia. Will flew in from Nevada. We had patients flying in from all over the place for appointments. And they would come on site for 3 days. We called it our intensive visit. So it was 3 days of soft tissue evaluation and joint evaluation, treatment, and 3 days of inside of the gym performance expression. So we could see if our soft tissue work was making a change in the gym, and we could do 3 days of we sent people home hungry and tired. They worked hard when they came out to visit us. But now all of a sudden they need a program to follow when they're gone. What are we going to do when they're not local? And that's kind of how the company that you see today was born, is out of necessity. We had people we were working with from all over the world, writing them program design, making sure that they were following the appropriate lifestyle. And I could no longer dedicate my time to being in the clinic and in this online business. And so I just went all in on the other one, the online, and transferred the ownership of the clinic to my partner in exchange for the online business. We're glossing over a lot of really intense failure that I think people listening to this would find a lot of relief in, because it sounds like all the best hits, but it wasn't fun to get a 46 on a radiology test and need 94 to pass. That was fucking stressful. It wasn't fun to get a D+ on my last college class ever and have to take another course at a local university just to get my degree from University of Maryland that I should have gotten 6 months earlier. Right? It wasn't fun to own an event company, a gym, and a clinic, to make $30,000 a year working 17-hour days with a pregnant wife, and to lose $13,000 to $15,000 that we had saved together on the last event I ever threw. There was a lot of intense failure in all of that because I was unwilling to look at myself as the problem. And when I hired that mentor, the first thing he taught me was, if you want to be more successful in business, you need to focus on becoming a better person. I was like, I treat everybody exactly how I want to be treated. What are you talking about? He said, yeah, you do. The problem is you're a fucking psychopath. And most people don't want to be treated like fucking psychopaths. So you need to work harder to treat people how they want to be treated. And no one ever told me that before. It was revelatory. And that's when I started cutting things out of my life that weren't beneficial for me, for the people around me, for the things I wanted to achieve. And then it was just, this guy worked with me for 9 months and never taught me anything about business. And that was the first year in my life I made $100,000 just by working on becoming a better person.
I appreciate that. And I go back to the bully story that you told us with your father, and I make the connection there. The way that you were parented in that situation, then I'll bring it to parenting. The way you were parented in that situation, your father gave you the advice, like, don't let that bully in your life, don't not stand up to him. Like, even if you fucking get beat up, you get punched in the face, whatever it is, like, go after that situation. During the course of your journey, you mentioned a couple spots where you had these roadblocks in front of you, getting a 46 in the first test, Hurricane Sandy, almost losing this and that. Every single time it wasn't, the fucking 220-pound 8th grader in front of you. It was a life situation that was in front of you that you weren't going to let stop you. You were going to stand up against whatever that life bully was based on the experience that you had. It's such a powerful thing. Situations that we go through in those formative years of our life, it's a person. It's that fucking big ass motherfucker. It's O'Doyle from Billy Madison.
Yeah.
Doyle rules. Yeah. Like at some point, you have to stand up against that bully in front of you, and you took that life lesson. And
you were loved no matter what. Like the thing that your father says that resonates with me is the fact he gave you the space that, like, no matter what the outcome is, I need you to do this, but you will be loved no matter what the outcome is. And imagine you having that story growing up, or how that story could have been so much different. You could have been telling that to us in a way different way right now, and it could have impacted you so differently from those words that he spoke to you.
And even having the insight to talk about, listen, I treated everybody the way I wanted to be treated, but I wasn't right in the head. So if I'm treating everybody the way that I'm treating myself, that's no good. That's a deep journey to look inside and have the courage to talk about that as well. So I mentioned the whole fatherhood thing, right? So we have our idea of what masculinity means, what it means to be a man. And I believe that I had an idea for a long period of my life, and then the idea shifted when I became a father. And then it shifted again in the last year and a half when I started this Building Men movement up. You, on your Instagram, you have one of your highlights is about dadding. DAD-ING, and the lessons you've learned as a father. So talk to us a little bit about what you've learned about being a man after you became a father.
I want to start a little earlier. There's a lot of talk, especially now, about like masculinity, femininity, toxic masculinity, whatever. I've never fucking thought about it. I don't care if somebody thinks what I'm doing is masculine or not. Like I can't think of 5 things that are more irrelevant to me than how masculine somebody else thinks that I am. So, and maybe that's a masculine thing. I don't know. I never really thought about it. But to me, the big thing is, and I teach this to my kids as best I can. I used to say, I don't care what people think of me. And that's still true, but I used to not care. It's not true. I do care what people think about me, but I don't change who I am necessarily based on what everybody thinks. I make decisions about, well, this person thinks this about me. Why does this person think this about me? Is it true? Do I want it to be true? Do I not want it to be true? Am I misrepresenting what my truth is for that person? Do I change the way I communicate it? Or is that person just so batshit crazy that I'm never going to get there? It's not worth it. So with my kids, it's the same. You know, my oldest daughter is 6. I have 3 daughters. And my oldest daughter, number 1, we call her, number 1, number 2, and number 3, came home from school after the first day, because last year she wasn't going to school. I wasn't sending her in wearing a mask, sitting in a cubicle. That wasn't going to be her first school experience. No thanks. My wife was a teacher. No. So she had her first day of school, and she fancies herself good at everything. She's very competitive, like somebody I grew up with. And she came home upset because she finished in last place in the running race around the field before phys ed. She thought she was really fast before she went to school because she's never had anyone to look at it against. And she's like, I'm not going to school tomorrow. I said, well, okay. You are going to go to school tomorrow. Why do you want to stay home from school? And she told me, I finished in last place. I said, well, do you want to not finish in last place? Would you like to be faster? She said, yes. I said, well, how do you think we get faster? And she said, I don't know, maybe practice. It's a good idea. Do you want daddy to teach you how to be faster? She said, yes. And so I said, tomorrow, we're going to, as soon as I get home from work, me and you are going to go, and I'm going to teach you how to be fast. And every day for like a week and a half, I would come home from work, and she was ready in her workout clothes to learn how to be faster. And one day she passed, like the first day, she passed 1 kid. The second day, she passed 2 kids. The third day, she said she passed 3 kids. She might have been lying. Who cares? The point is, she had the confidence to go to school now because all she remembers, knees up. Knees up. Like she was basically like dragging her feet. I don't know what. She learned that from mom. Okay. But it was cool to be able to teach my kid how to navigate the same proverbial bully of a circumstance that I was faced with in 7th grade that my father helped me go through. And to be able to see it and be conscious of it and to have it be something that I have so much skill around was like, thank God it was this and not like some kid bullied me because I don't need my daughter punching a kid in the face in school.
Oh, it's awesome. It's awesome. And I love that you didn't take the opportunity to say, no, you're not going to school, or suck it up, buttercup. Stop.
Right.
What it was, is this important to you? First of all, without assuming that she wants to get faster, is this something you want to do? Do you want to get faster? Yes. Do you want to work at it? Yes. Okay. I'm here to help you out.
Yeah. Well, so there's 2 more little, like one thing I'll tell you that I think you'll laugh at is, I don't know if I just cut you off because you
No,
froze.
go ahead, jump in. I'm loving this.
When she was in pre-K, she was in a show at school, and they were like, they had their hands on their hips and they were singing, and she just starts wailing on the kid next to her. Like she inches over and just is like elbowing this kid, to the point that like my wife and like, what is going on? What is she doing? This is embarrassing. And after the show, I'm like, what were you doing up there? She's like, oh, you mean to Blaze? I'm like, yeah. She goes, he pushed me before we came on stage, and you said if somebody hits me, I can hit them back. So I waited until I had a good time, and I hit him back a lot. I was like, oh, that's cool. I'm good with it. But the other scenario that I was going to talk to is I'm very involved in the school board meetings that my kid goes that pertain to my kid's school. And I'm on a committee and a subcommittee for mental health and physical fitness. And there was a lot of talk around how the district wants to move from having this level of percentage of kids having competency and this level having proficiency to this many kids having proficiency and this many having competency. And everyone was coming up with strategies for how they could do that better. And I took myself back to being the kid in school. And I'm like, I don't care about your standard for proficiency. And there's a kid on the subcommittee who's in 8th grade. And so I said to the kid, do you know the difference between proficiency and competency in your classes? She said, no. I said, me either. Can somebody please share the difference? And they shared that like proficiency is above an 85% and competency is above a 65 and below an 85. I said, do you care if your grades are over 85%? And she said, no, not at all. And I said to the group, I'm like, why are we focusing on trying to get this kid to stress over whether her grade is an 85 or an 84? What's the point? Until somebody can share with me the reason why that's relevant, I'm not in support that we pursue this at all. And nobody could.
And not only that, who gives them the permission to create the metric of what the 84% versus the 85% means? What is their level of expertise that they can assess something that a lot of it could be totally subjective in nature, and that deems them proficient versus whatever the other one was that you said. It's asinine.
Well, but that's public school.
Amen.
And I get it. I do understand. They need to be able to measure something that's objective. The question is, how much importance do we place on it? What are the other metrics that we can be looking at to identify that kid is getting out of their education what we intend? Like instead of the success criteria at the end of the year being X number of kids at proficient and Y number of kids at competent, how about X number of kids can have a conversation with an adult? Y number of kids, don't care how many likes they got on Instagram this week. Where is the stuff that is substantive? That's where focus could be for kids for whom grades are unimportant.
You were that kid. You didn't fucking care what your grade was. You didn't care if you got an A. As long as you did well enough in school, that was perfectly fine with you.
I used to act out in class because I was bored. And when they asked me, why are you acting out? And I said, because I'm bored. They would tell me, well, you need to do your work. I'm like, my work is done. My work is done. Like I'll never forget the teacher coming over one time and be like, you need to do your work. I'm like, it's done.
Yeah.
It's fucking done. Well, it's not gonna get an A. I'm like, call my mom. What do you want me to tell you? I don't care about getting an A. And so then, of course it became a meeting with me, my parents, and the principal. And to my parents' credit, the principal was like, he's got to calm down. It's like, why don't you just let him leave the room when he's done? Just let him leave. Who cares? They wouldn't do that. So they just gave me more work to do. And the work that didn't count towards my grade, how well do you think I did on?
When you're bored anyway.
Yeah.
The movie Overboard, Goldie Hawn.
Yeah. Not Bruce Willis. Her husband, whatever the hell his name is.
Oh, why can't I think of it?
I can't think of his
Kurt Russell. Kurt Russell. Nice work. Nice work.
He's got some beautiful
Yeah,
flowing
and
hair.
so Goldie Hawn, when she's Annie Gooley,
Yeah.
when she goes into the school and the kids all have fucking poison sumac or poison ivy or something, and the teacher's like, they're refusing to take the Schwartzman-Heimlichen test.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Fuck you! Give my regards to Schwartzman and Heimlichen," as she's pulling them out of the school. It's the same exact fucking thing. I give all the credit in your world to your parents to having the wherewithal to do that, because that's the thing that we do in schools. And again, as two former educators that have left the profession, in public schools, that it's all bullshit. It's the things that we should be teaching kids in school. We should be teaching them about being able to have their voice heard, being assertive, to make sure that they can carry on a conversation, that they are not putting so much value in extrinsic type things. It needs to be intrinsic. So what's a lesson or two that you wish you learned at school, or that you hope your children will, number 1, number 2, and number 3, will learn in school over their journey?
I think the second question is a better one than the first one, because the lessons that I learned in school were all about how to get through it without doing it. Even in chiropractic school, when it came time for boards, I knew the grade I needed to get. So I studied that much material until I knew 100% of it. And then I would go golfing, go work out, go to a winery, while my friends were stressing out, studying their faces off, because I'm like, I know 100% of 70%. I'm sure I know 25% of the other 30. I'm going to be fine. And if a question comes up that I don't know, now I don't worry about stressing over, oh my God, what's the answer to that one? I have to go back and check on it later. It's fucking B. Move on.
Right.
So those are the lessons that I learned. I hope the lessons that my kids learned are more social. I would like it to be, that I didn't learn empathy until I hired that mentor. I hope my kids learn empathy from my wife and myself and confirm it through their application in school. I hope that they don't I used to get angry at teachers. I hope that my kids have sympathy for teachers who do the things that used to make me angry, because the teachers don't want to do that either. I would love for my kid to come home one day. Like, my dream would be that my kid comes home one day and says, man, I feel so bad for Mrs. Stewart. Why do you feel so bad for Mrs. Stewart? Because she has to give us this work that she knows isn't useful, that if she doesn't give us, she's going to get into trouble, that she knows makes us upset, that I have to finish now for some stupid reason. And then when I go back in tomorrow, it's harder for her to teach me because I'm tired and annoyed from what I had to do yesterday. If my kid ever comes home and says that, I'm just going to flip a table and be like, I made it. We're good.
That's it. That is parenting right there. That is how you understand what your kids need, but also that you mentioned empathy and being able to look at things in that way. It had nothing to do with a score. It had nothing to do with an assignment. It had everything to do with a life lesson that they learned. I want to shift slightly into the Active Life podcast. When you have gone on this journey of creating now a platform for people to come to listen, to consume what you have learned through talking to different guests, what's a lesson that you have learned either about yourself as a professional in your area, or about the world from people that you have interviewed? I know for myself and for my brother, like, we've learned so much shit during the last couple months talking to people that I never would have thought about things in a specific way, even from this podcast today, like the things that
even this one.
I mean, to me, I wrote down even this one. I wrote 2 fingers in and down. I wrote elbowing Blaze, and it's fucking B on the multiple choice. I learned those 3 things.
That's the title of the podcast, by the way.
It's fucking B.
By the way, you know why I chose B? I chose B because everybody else says, when in doubt, choose C. I'm like, they know better. It's going to be B.
It's a big takeaway. That's a huge takeaway.
We're learning so much.
Yeah. So what was your question? I'm sorry. What I learned from my guest.
It was a horrible question anyway.
I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot from our guests. And, you know, the most recent thing I learned, I just interviewed Rich Davini, who is a retired Navy SEAL commander, wrote the book, The Attributes, and is just really smart and well-developed thought leader. And he was talking about the difference between people being in charge and people being the leader. And he was explaining to me that, and I'm the CEO, right? I'm the founder. So I'm in charge. But that doesn't necessarily mean I'm the leader. And so what are the things that I need to be doing on a regular basis so that other people can decide I'm the leader? Because being in charge is a choice that I can make. Hey, I'm in charge here. Being a leader, I can't make that choice. They have to make that choice. So that was a really profound lesson for me to learn at the phase of the career that I'm in right now, because leadership is unquestionably the number one most important skill I have that I need to continue developing right now.
Where can the Building Men audience find you, Sean?
Instagram at Dr. Sean Pastuch is the easiest place because you'll find everything else from there.
That's the one-stop shop. Brother, you got any final thoughts, any questions?
Oh, man. So many final thoughts and questions. I'll give you a few quick hitters for the men out there.
Yeah.
Tough people don't do tough things. They make tough choices. Right? So you think you're a bitch for backing down from a fist fight. You're a bitch for needing to prove that you could be in that fist fight. Like, you don't need to be in that fist fight. There's no reason for it. Let the other person have that emotional win if they need it and move on. That's something that I've learned that I've found really important and valuable after pissing blood too many times. You don't need to, don't look at the age that you're at. Avoid looking at the age that you're at as a marker of where you're supposed to be in life based on where other people your age are and your friends and all that. Like, it can happen like that. You just stay consistent on a path that you're interested in, and the right things will happen. And always have a coach. There's the less capable you are right now of affording financially the coach that you know you need, the more you need to spend the money. When I hired that coach for myself, it was 2016. I was making less than $30,000 a year, and I was paying him $1,000 a month for 2 hours. That was the relationship. That was the first year I made $100,000. I have not been without a coach since.
Before this interview, that was one thing that we talked about, the importance of having that coach for yourself, the importance of being able to invest in yourself in a deep way where you are going to hold yourself accountable and have someone else hold yourself accountable, but there is a financial aspect to it. You know, we can go out and learn as much as we can through listening to podcasts or audiobooks, through researching things on the internet, but having that person that's going to invest in you, like your teacher, Dietrich, that helped you become stronger than you were because he held you accountable, but helped you believe in yourself on a deeper level. That's what it's about. Anthony, any final thoughts, Anthony?
No final thoughts. I'm good.
No final thoughts.
I got nothing.
So tell us one thing that the audience of Building Men can do tomorrow. They wake up in the morning, first thing in the morning. What's something that they can do tomorrow that is a small thing that could make a big impact on their life?
I will pull mine up. Give me a moment here as I go through my phone because I don't want to miss any of the words. What I would recommend is to everybody to write a personal mission statement and read it every day. Because what's going to happen is if your personal mission statement doesn't give you chills, doesn't make you emotional, it's not in line with what is really important to you anymore. And it's time to change it. Or it's time to evaluate what you're doing. So I'll read you mine and implore all of you to do your own. With empathy and effort, I demonstrate intentionally my love for my wife. Through my actions, my words, and my patience, I deliberately coach my children to be confident, capable people. I influence positive change in this world so that others find success they otherwise might not have. And through the execution of my process, I have left a legacy that my children, future generations, and I am proud of. If you read that in the morning, and then you show up at a 9-to-5 job that you hate, either the job is lying, or the statement's lying, or you're on fire from 5:30 to midnight while you work on the way you get out of that job.
Trying to be in alignment with what's inside of you. How is that manifesting itself? How is the beliefs that you have inside, is that what you're seeing in the mirror every day when you wake up? So great advice for the Building Men audience. Do that. Take the opportunity tomorrow after you listen to this episode. Write that personal mission statement. Read it every day. Read it in the beginning of the day. Read it at the end of the day. Something will help you get closer to your goals, align you to what you need to be doing in the future.
And be open to changing it. And the big reason why a lot of the people who we've coached at Active Life to write mission statements, a big reason why they've never written it is they want it to be perfect.
Right.
Because they're afraid they're going to write the wrong one and it doesn't properly represent them. I've changed that thing 10 times. You can change it as many times as you want.
And once number 4 comes along, you'll have to change it a little bit again.
You sound like my brother-in-law.
So, Sean Pastuch, we look forward to seeing you at the Stuch-Fest 2022. We'd love to come if the invite's out there on the table. To find the Building Men, find us on Building Men, building.men on Instagram, buildingmencoach@gmail.com. Look for Hero's Journey Men's Retreat, April 28th through May 1st in Lake Tahoe, California. More information is forthcoming. Thank you again, Sean Pastuch. Anthony, well done. We'll see you next time. Go one step further than you thought you can go. We'll see you next time on Building Men.